Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Women's Wisdom Through the Ages. This is part two of the special session with now author Meena Kumar. So we're so happy to have her back. And if you haven't watched the first part, I highly recommend you do that because part of it was we just had a bit of a look, but we went through about what women's wisdom through the ages is about. So partly it's about we think differently through the ages, through our own ages, through the different generations we think differently, but also even over time we think differently. And we also shared quite a bit about Meena's, what the last interview was about, as well as the feedback, and even how it sort of, links into this latest venture that she has been on. With some of it, she even mentioned has been 29 years in the making, and even the book 10 years in the making. So we're so excited to continue with this. So thank you, Meena. So it's like the big drum roll of you're talking about your two protagonists. So the last one we talked about was Renee, who is the Indian migrant to Sydney. But the next character, so we're ready for you to share about this one.
So this is the character. Thank you, Catherine. And this is the character which has been sitting with me for many, many years now, 29 years. At least the germ of the idea for this character came to me 29 years ago, though I never thought that she would find her way into a novel. It's so to give you an introduction as to why this character first. Can I do that?
Yes, absolutely. I love it.
So this is 29 years ago when my son was born. He was born and then immediately he got pneumonia through inhaling, the fluid, and followed by septicemia. So he was 2 weeks in an incubator, and my first child, and I was so stressed. So we came home 2 weeks later with our little baby, and I was not in the best headspace at the time. And so barely 2 or 3 days later, there's this group of people known in India as hijras or kinners. So there is no exact parallel in the Western world. Maybe transgender is a very loose term, really, but more about that later. And I don't want to give everything away in the book too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what happened was they were singing and dancing as they usually do, off-key melodies, and men basically dressed as women for the most part, and accompanied by a male with the harmonium, the wind instrument, and they demand money. Anytime a child is born, they get the information from the hospitals, and they have their ways of knowing. And then so basically they demand money and clothes, and in order to bless the newborn. So they do that even at weddings, and even when you build a new house.
So, can I just stop there? So why does the hospital give them the information? Why do people allow people to come in and demand things? Like, are they seen to be holy men, or what's the and why is it seen as a blessing? Can you just share a little bit more, because that's really unusual, especially if you're a typical Aussie or Kiwi or American.
Yes, so that's a very interesting history there. So initially they called eunuchs. They used to be actually very respected, and they used to have a very important place in royal households, both in the erstwhile Hindustan, and even when the Mughal kings came. So they were actually employed to protect their queens and their harems, because they were seen as non-threatening towards females. And but subsequently, British rule and India's own government, after that came about, they did not have a place in society anymore. So, yeah, but they are considered, they consider themselves and also considered by many people
Mm-hmm.
because of superstition, or
Mm-hmm.
really believe that they are spiritually empowered to curse or bless. And
Mm-hmm.
that their blessings, so if it's a wedding they've gone to, they bless the couple with fertility
Mm-hmm.
and the child with healthy, normal lives,
Mm-hmm.
long lives.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, now it's become even houses because the ways to earn has become less and less. So okay, we
Yes.
can your house, so it's all good,
And can I just
and people
check?
believe in that.
Yeah, yeah. And can I just check? You said bless or curse.
Yes.
Can you give an example, and then I'll share something about, a background that we talked about when we talked on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
What would be an example of why they would curse? Tell
You
us
didn't
about.
pay them.
Say it again.
If you don't pay them,
Oh,
yes. So if you don't give them
oh,
money or what they are asked for, then they do,
wow,
they threaten you with a few things. One,
wow.
they threaten to disrobe in front of you.
Yeah.
So in which case, if you see their private parts, then it will be like a curse on.
Mm-hmm.
So so the opposite could happen. So instead of fertility, it could be infertile. The persons could be infertile, or the child, something could go wrong. And most people are very frightened for their children, and they would either because they
Mm.
really believe or just to get rid of them.
Mm-hmm.
So they are looked at with hostility, fear,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and sometimes they are, police as well as a lot of people are, they are met with violence too. So yes, so when they do come, and the hospital, the nurses or the midwives and all, not the doctors as such, but they do tell them because of their own fears, and because they also believe that they are spiritually empowered to do this.
Yep.
That's why. And then anyway, so I was very stressed. I was very, very annoyed. And I said, at the end of a lot of bargaining to and fro, they were like asking 10, 15 times more than I was ready to give them, or that I could afford. And I said, look, I don't believe in either your blessings or your curses. You want this? Take it. Otherwise, you can go. My son is sick. I don't have patience with all of this. And I said, why don't you even get a job? Why do you have to go around begging like this? So then from behind, there was one thin kinner, Hijra, who was standing a little behind.
Mm.
He came forward, and in the best possible English, for an in India, if you have speak English, which is called the convent English, convent
Mm-hmm.
school English, with a good accent, it means two things: that you have come from a more than a middle class family, and that you've got a very good education.
Mm.
So I thought, I was just shocked. That what is this person doing here, begging? I was so, and she said, uh, "It's easy for you to say, but who's going to give us jobs?
Mm.
Even if we do get jobs, how are the rest of the people going to look at us? They already look at us with disgust.
Mm.
Do you think it'll be easy for us to work in that environment?" And
Mm.
nowadays, people have only one or two children. So we don't even have ways to earn money has
Mm.
reduced. So all is left is prostitution.
Mm.
I was so shocked. I just walked inside, got a little bit more money, what I had cash at home, gave that, two or three more saris and clothes I just
Yeah.
gave,
Yeah.
stayed with me.
Mm.
Two feelings were paramount. One was, three really. I was sad,
Mm-hmm.
I was shocked, and
Mm-hmm.
also I think the biggest feeling I had was shame. shame not only for myself, but for us as a whole, as the way we treat them, that we don't really see them. We don't see them. They are on our life's periphery.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and we don't know much about them. So that led me to all my research and all. Initially, very little, because we didn't have computers and all that time in India, like personal computers in the 90s at home. So when I moved to Australia, I brought all my bits and pieces of paper, my poetry, and all of that when I moved. And suddenly I started researching this topic. I had them on my computer sitting there. And then in 2010, from God or 11, God knows from where, it just started coming. So I had my second protagonist really as first protagonist.
Wow. Yeah. And there was something you mentioned there. Yeah, I love it already. And straight away it's like, oh, so a convent school. So obviously there was, so the convent you went to, obviously it's British India at the time. And so was that a Catholic convent? Because usually when we think of convent, that's Catholic convent. So
the one I went to, it was Sacred Heart.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And I could tell from the language, because government schools also teach English if they are English medium schools.
Yes.
But it's not the same thing. You can tell the difference.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And so when you're talking about the Kinners or the Hedras, what is that is that Hindu or Sikh, or is that something different again?
Good question, because they could be from any background really.
Okay.
Primarily, the goddess they follow is called Bahuchara Mata. Mata means mother. And it is their goddess. Whereas they also follow Muslim saints.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they could be Christians, but they all actually live in very, very unique communities. It's like every unit has a mother. So there'll be a mother called Mata Guru, and then all the disciples, the chelas, they are the followers. So they all live in that one house, and all the earnings are brought by all the hijras, and then the mother looks after their needs.
And is the mother also a Kinna or a Hedra?
Yes, absolutely. So there may be a mother, there may be a grandmother.
Yeah.
And so on. But and then at some point she would choose the next one to become
yes. Okay. So and that just sounds so amazing. And so because I'm just aware of the time as we're going along. And so because there's so many things come up straight away as soon as you start talking about, like, as an example, I'm sure we've all seen old movies, or even in the Bible, you know that exactly what you said. It's about you having the eunuchs in the palace because they're seen to be non-threatening. And yet that can be different again as well, for all different reasons, but we don't have time to talk about those now.
Right.
But one thing
it's a huge topic, really.
It is amazing, and it's just fascinating, and also just culturally, it's it's so different. And we talked about that, and I've had friends, or have got friends, who would call themselves transgender, or definitely transvestites, and we got talking about that last time. However, just at the moment, I have a question. Were you just with everything that's happening in the news and over the last few years, were you nervous about talking on the topic of transgender?
Not really, but I was certainly concerned about getting all my facts right, and that's all the basic facts had to be correct. And actually, although it's a work of fiction, I still needed to get all the right information. That was my concern.
Yeah. And I know I've been the same with my characters. And I love the fact that you talked about the tradition or the culture, because it's different. So say in Indonesia, or in Thailand, in Thailand they're called shims. In Indonesia they're called bunchies. And then, in Australia it's different manifestation again.
Yes.
And one of the questions that I wrote was, has your understanding of the topic of transgender changed since preparing for and writing on this topic? Because obviously you had that very real, compassionate response when you heard the story, which is very real. Anyone who is different, especially many, many years ago, but has it changed again since then? Has it changed through the ages?
Yes, definitely. So at that time, I was just it set me thinking, why was this person who is so well educated, comes from a good family, why does she have to lead a life like that, begging, when she could have had? Obviously, there was no family support and had to run away. And since then, I've done a lot of research through articles published, studies published by even UNDP, United Nations Development Program, about the Kinners, and also a lot of YouTube interviews from, and also from those hijras who've had family support. So from there I've come, and in those 10 years also, since I wrote the book, started writing the book, there have been changes. Certain things like they've received identity cards, they've been recognized as a third gender. But but then they still say, through the interviews, they say, yes, we've got an identity card. It's called an Aadhaar card, but we still really don't have an identity. And they have recently received the right to adopt. But there's so much out there with HIV, AIDS. There are innumerable suicides because the mental health issues have not been recognized. Even doctors don't really know. They're not taught in medical schools about the Kinnars or the Hijras in particular. They don't know what to expect. Are they intersex? Do they have certain genitals they don't have? What exactly is a Hijra? I didn't know any of that either. Only through my research I learned, and that found its way into my book.
Yeah, beautiful. And I'm sure, I would say quite often on something like that, I think a lot of people have opinions, but I love the fact that you had your own experiences, but then you went off and also, did the research.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that we talked before, especially about the spiritual aspect.
Yes.
And yeah, because it's like, sometimes there's people changing over their lives. And we've talked about that, even our own identities, we change over time.
Yep.
And sometimes it might be as simple as, when you're a child, you might want to be a ballerina or an astronaut. And then when you get older, and I look at, say, for example, people who are on drugs or people who sometimes even gay, like I was quite involved with the gay community, especially over in Indonesia for a while. And I would meet with the people that were running the AIDS outreach programs, especially for people in the communities who were illiterate. And I had friends who, like I said, were at least transvestites. And at one stage I was even co-hosting events. That's going back now probably 20, 30 years ago or something.
I must hear about that sometime.
Yeah, it was just so much fun. And like I said, one of my closest friends probably still, has that lifestyle. So I'll have to let him know I'll have to send a thing to him about this interview. But it's just fascinating, how we do change over time, and sometimes there are spiritual components to that, and especially it's not only it can be your culture, it can be your tradition, it can be all of these different backgrounds. So it's not just a straightforward, and the same as I think anything. Sometimes we can say, okay, there's only two genders, in the Bible, or two genders according to science with the XXXY.
Yeah.
but for the people going through things, it's also very real. So I think it's definitely not wise to discount people's experience, or to discount emotions, or to discount the complexities. And so that's why I just love the fact that you're talking on this topic, because it's so important, especially for the times now.
Yep, absolutely. And the spirituality actually, although most hijras are said to be Hindus, but really in reality they actually follow for example, as I mentioned, Bahuchara Mata is a goddess, their resident goddess. And then there are Islamic saints, Christianity, and in the past, especially those who underwent castration, make that transformation complete, would do it in the presence of her idol, Bahuchara
Oh,
Mata.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, and without anesthesia. And they did so in the belief that if they went through a medical procedure, it would take away from the spiritual experience. And through this process, they are said to attain nirvana. And
Wow.
that gives them the spiritual powers to cause or bless.
Yes. And from a Christian perspective, and especially deliverance, it's got a whole different concept of all of that, but that's not what we're talking about today, because no matter what we might even have experienced or whatever, it's, they are real, that, all of these things, it's a complex issue.
Yes.
And like I said, I just love the fact that, that your characters are just so interesting. And I think they'll be increasingly, people will have their own friends or family that have had these sorts of experiences. And I love the fact that you've done the research as well, that people will be able to learn about very real situations. So, who would you say this book is for?
So, I would say definitely the Indian as well as other migrant diaspora anywhere actually, because not only Australia, because the nostalgia for the sights, smells, the flowers, the foods is common amongst migrants anyway.
Yeah.
Especially first generation ones. And the angst and the culture shock experienced by them and the children are similar all over. And the book should also appeal to the people belonging to the LGBTQ community, the transgender community, and those who care that every human being needs to be treated fairly.
Yeah.
And that everyone has that need to fit in.
Yeah.
To be accepted.
Yeah.
And and they should not be driven to despair because of this lack of acceptance.
Yes. So I love that. And I don't even know anything about the story, but I already love the characters. So I haven't actually got a copy yet, so I'm really excited to get my copy. And next time when we speak, it'll be after I've read it, so then we can come back again. And in the meantime, I'm just going to bring up, in the last session we talked about the bodhitreeskincare.com.au. And also I want to show people your website as well. So we're just going to quickly do a screen share and show both of those links. So this is the author page. So this is, why has it come up there? Oh, it's sort of
up on my screen.
Yeah, it's coming up. So it's Meena Mahanty. So MEENA Kumar, Kumar. So I don't know if you can see the actual full name of that, but it's meenamahantykumar.com. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Yep. So this one you can see more, and right at the moment it's already available in Canada, India, and the US. and there's a little bit of a hiccup. So hopefully that'll be sorted out in the next couple of days with Australia. And I know there's quite a few people from New Zealand and different countries that watch, this podcast or this video channel. So it'd be great to see that available in more countries. And also, I'd like to just, if I can move this banner somehow, not sure if I know how to do that. Okay, I just wanted to go back because in the last session we talked about, the first time that you were on as a guest, and it was your journey with breast cancer. And so it was not only the really powerful testimony, but it also turned into this wonderful venture about living a more healthy life. And so this is bodhitreeskincare.com.au. So, and then there's all the different products and everything there. So I just quickly wanted to show people that one. So, but back to Meena Mahanti Kumar. So you will be able to buy the book there. So we are so excited for you, Meena. I'm so excited to read it. And it's interesting, someone that we both know through one of the business councils here in Sydney, I heard his or I read his like a testimonial, a recommendation, and I was like, wow, Meena, I can't wait till I talk to you and find out more about this book. So I'm so excited. So it's been an absolute pleasure, as always, having you on. And for those people who don't know, Women's Wisdom Through the Ages is one of the projects under the social enterprise Imagineering to a Better World. And so we're coming up to our 10th anniversary. And so that's super exciting. So Meena and I will be actually catching up face-to-face in Sydney for the first time. I'll be back in Sydney in a couple of weeks. So she'll be part of the celebration. So that'll be awesome.
Yes, I'm so looking forward to that.
Cool. Okay, well, thank you so much. And did you just want to say anything else to anyone who's watching?
Thank you very much, Catherine. And to anyone who's watching, I hope if you read the book, and I would love feedback on my website if you have read it, and I hope you enjoy it. I hope you've enjoyed this chat with Catherine. I always love talking to her. So thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you. So remember, we can change the world one day at a time, one person at a time, one decision at a time. And thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you